Give me your best smiles and affirmation, because these guys feed off of you. And whatever, and you guys even at home watching this, if you could give me your best smiling voice or smiling eyes and affirmative head nods and whatnot, they can imagine you're the loved ones here at home. But if you guys can do that for me, I'm going to make you 5 promises tonight. Promise number 1, I promise not to say we're all in this together. Promise number 2, I promise not to say stay home, stay safe. Promise number 3, I promise not to say this is our new normal. These are all my wife's pet peeves, so. Promise number 4, I promise not to say we're living in uncertain times. And then lastly, judges, I promise that I will not ask you guys to flatten the curve when grading the contestants tonight. Okay, fair enough? All right, folks, if these students do their job tonight, and I know they will, you'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll leave here feeling inspired to make positive changes in your lives. So let's take a moment to kind of look at what it took to get here anyway. So first we contacted communication studies professors from all 34 colleges. And we asked them to nominate their top public speaking students. Once nominated, the students recorded a 3-minute teaser video of their speech, and they were screened and critiqued by a panel of high-level communicators, including a dean from the University of Alabama, the director of communications from the United States Air Force Academy, and a TV producer / reporter, one of Seattle's most popular sports reporters, Jen Mueller of Root Sports. So pretty high-level communicators that screened you guys. And so it wasn't easy getting here. And the hard part, relentless rehearsal, and of course the courage to get up here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the stars of tonight's show. And if you would, why don't we, if you would come on up, just make a round on stage here when I call your name. We're going to do something a little different here because otherwise the camera's not going to see you. So I'll call you up. Just go ahead and come around stage, wave to the camera, and then go back to your seat if you would. All right, a young lady who was grand champion of the Thurston County Fair goat milking competition for 6 years running, and a recent winner of the Outstanding Student Award at her college, the pride of Tenino, Washington, Lisa Chapman. A girl who recently graduated just a hair shy of a perfect 4.0 and earned her preschool teaching certificate at the ripe age of 16 years old. Maddie Shanks of Mossy Rock, Washington. From Olympia, Washington, she's the captain of her college soccer team, and she enters tonight's competition as the #1 ranked speaker. There's a curse for you if I've ever heard one. Haley Ward. A young man who started college at the age of 15, and he enters tonight's competition as our youngest competitor at only 16 years of age. From Chehalis, Washington, Matthew Critcher. And finally, he served our country by enlisting in the Army straight out of high school, and now he's going to school for a career in the aerospace industry, originally from Oakdale, California, C.J. Backman. Judges and folks at home, let's give a big round of applause for our top 5 speakers. And I want to thank God for giving these fine people the courage to get up here tonight and the work ethic to prepare for this during their summer break nonetheless. Do you guys mind if I go off script for 1 minute? Of course you don't mind. You don't have a choice. I got the mic. I want to tell you a quick story about these young folks. Last night, I was telling some of them how one of the moms of one of the contestants flew all the way up here from California. I'm thinking she probably bought her airline ticket before she knew about the governor's mandate about no more than 10 people in a room. And he asked me yesterday, you know, is there any way we could sneak mom in, or at least, you know, could she stand out in the hallway? And I said, well, I don't think she'll be able to hear. And I said, I'm sorry, we just can't do it. And I was telling some of this young man's competitors about this sad story. And the other reason I want to do it is because I thought that's not fair to the other 4 competitors. You know, if we have one mom in here, they're all going to be ticked off. How come my mom and dad don't get to be here? So I said no. And I was telling the other 4 competitors about this, and I thought they would say, "Attaboy, Jeff, thank you for not, that wouldn't have been fair." Instead, what they did is they started brainstorming on how they could get his mom in here. And the idea that they came up with was, well, if his mom comes up about 10 minutes before he speaks, one of us will scoot out and she can come in and watch, since she came all the way from California. Never once did they ask, could my mom or my dad come in? It was the concern over their competitor. It gives me the goosebumps. So that's the type of young people. And when I think about the shape of our country right now and I get depressed, I try to remember about people like these. So you guys are an inspiration to me. Thank you. Okay, next I'd like to acknowledge family and friends who are watching tonight to support the top 5. And without your years of support and guidance, these speakers wouldn't be here. So good job and thank you, and now you get to reap the fruits of your labor. I'd also like to acknowledge our judges. And judges, when I call your name one by one, if you could come up like the students did, just so we can get you on camera, maybe wave to the camera. And we've got some really awesome judges tonight. I feel very thankful for you guys. So let's start out with the Communications Director for the State Board of Community and Technical Colleges, Laura McDowell. And we'll hold our applause till everybody goes around. One of Central Washington's most popular professors, Professor of IT and Business Management, Luke Williams. And finally, a leader that needs no introduction, our wonderful Secretary of State, Kim Wyman. Let's hear it for our awesome judges tonight. And all 3 of these judges have lots of communication experience, so I think you guys would be judged very fairly, I would say. I should mention that we've gone out of our way to make sure that none of the judges have any affiliation with Centralia College, and they don't know which college any of the speakers are from. I have not told them. They haven't asked. But I do want to disclose, this is only fair that I disclose, that our judges will all receive a Centralia College sweatshirt, season tickets to all Centralia College sporting events, and a modest bonus check from the Centralia College Foundation. I'm joking, of course. There's no sweatshirts. All right, there's a lot more people who volunteered to help make this happen, but I'll acknowledge them later because we're going to need time for you judges to tally the results, so we'll acknowledge other people later. But before we start, can everybody please, let's turn off our ringers, if we haven't already, just double check. And we ask that everybody in the room, speakers anyway, please keep your face coverings on unless you're speaking. So we'll do 2 speeches, and then we'll have a 10-minute intermission where you can grab something to drink, and there's some prepackaged cookies, things like that. And then we'll come back after a 10-minute intermission, and we'll do the final 3 speakers. And then we'll have Secretary Wyman announce the runner-up and winner, and then we'll hand out the plaques to everyone, take a quick photo with the judges, and then without the judges, and then we'll be off. So in between each speaker, in order to allow the judges time to tally their results, we're going to do trivia. And you can play at home if you like. There's 20 questions. I told the speakers that if anybody at home scores a perfect 20 for 20, I will send a gift card their way. But the students are also playing tonight, and I've got a gift card here in my pocket for the student that gets the most trivia answers right. And again, that just buys the judges time to get their scores tallied in between speakers. So, here's the first two trivia questions, and judges, if you guys want to just on your scrap paper play along just for fun, I think you'll enjoy this, because this is more suited for somebody who's over the age of 40. These guys are going to struggle with these. Trivia question number 1, what was the price of a candy bar in most places in 1972 in the United States? Price of a candy bar, 1972 in the United States. Was it A, 25 cents, B, 10 cents, or C, 50 cents? Was it 25 cents, 10 cents, or 50 cents? You got 10 seconds. Okay, here comes the answer. The correct answer was in 1972, a candy bar was, Secretary Wyman? 10 cents. How did you know? And I used to pay 20 cents. Some of my students will recall this story. I paid 20 because I was too shy to talk to the checker, so I had to. My little brother, who was 4 years old at the time, had a 100% markup. Not suffice to say, he's very successful now. In regards to, this is question number 2, in regards to the fear of public speaking, who said at a funeral most people would rather be the one in the casket than the one to give the eulogy? Was it A, Jackie Gleason, B, Ronald Reagan, or C, Jerry Seinfeld? This person said at a funeral most people would rather be the one in the casket than have to give the eulogy. Was it A, Jackie Gleason, B, Ronald Reagan, or C, Jerry Seinfeld? You got 10 seconds. Okay, finalize your answer, please. And the correct answer was Jerry Seinfeld. Anybody 2 for 2? All right. We'll have more trivia here in a few minutes. But now it's time for our first speaker. She recently graduated with her Associate of Arts degree and was named Outstanding Student at her college. This speaker was the 2018 state champion of the Washington State 4-H Fashion Review, a design, sewing, and modeling competition. And her speech is titled, Living the American Dream. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming to the stage from Tenino, Washington, Lisa Chapman.
Secretary Wyman, Professor Williams, and Ms. McDowell, thank you for coming out today. Everyone watching at home, thank you for tuning in. How are you doing? Great, good. So to start our afternoon, allow me to share with you 2 key phrases from the most impactful man I've ever met. Live the American dream, and don't be a jerk. Now, let me ask you, how many of you want to make a positive impact? By a show of hands. All of us. How many of you want to live a meaningful life? Show of hands. Everyone here. So, what can we learn from the man I just mentioned, who, as I said, is the most impactful man I've met? Well, allow me to introduce you to him. This is Clint. Clint Jason Side. Now, if you met Clint, you would notice his bright sense of humor and encouraging personality. Everywhere he went, he was well respected and known for the encouragement he brought to others. Ever since he was a child growing up on a garlic farm in New York, he had a passion for serving and investing in others. He also had a passion for his country and for adventure. So it was no surprise that he joined the Army right after graduating high school. From the age of 18 to 24, Clint served 6 years as military police, including 4 tours of service to Iraq. During his time of service, he met the love of his life, his wife, Rainey. The two of them got married a month before his final deployment, and while Clint was in Iraq, just after marriage, he received the news that he was going to be a father. Now, he and Rainey were overjoyed. Fast forward 7 months from there, and a fellow soldier sped into Clint's post and found Clint, urgently telling him, "I told command I'd have you back in 6 minutes. Let's go." So Clint was rushed to command in what was usually a 20-minute drive, and they made it in time to find that Rainey was on the phone with the news that their daughter, Victoria, had been born. But she was deceased, stillborn. Clint and Rainey were devastated. And for years, they struggled to start their family. They lost multiple pregnancies. During this time, Clint struggled a lot with PTSD at the same time. He had many flashbacks of life-threatening experiences he had in Iraq as a sniper. But despite their struggles, Clint and Rainey kept on. They kept building their lives together, joyfully anticipating their future. Rainey worked for the state, and Clint worked with the Lewis County Sheriff's Department, tracking sex offenders. They were very involved in their community and their church, and overall, even with struggles, their life was happy and wonderful. Until one day, Clint began suffering from intense migraines. So, after experiencing these for a time, he went to his doctor to seek treatment. And walking into the clinic, he had been experiencing a month-long migraine. They ran some tests, an MRI, and his doctor looked at him and said, "Clint, you have a brain tumor the size of an orange. Brain cancer." 26 years old, just 4 years into his marriage, Clint was diagnosed with the most aggressive form of brain cancer and told, even with treatment, it was unlikely he had more than 6 months to live. Life isn't easy. It's true for me, it's true for you, and it was true for Clint. While it's different for us all, we all have times in our life when we face difficult circumstances, times when it's easy to become discouraged, easy to become frustrated. But in times like these and in day-to-day life, Clint has taught me 2 powerful lessons. First, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you face, no matter what comes at you, you are not done. So keep on. Second, even though you can't always control your circumstances, you can control how you think and how you react, and that can make all the difference. With your perspective, you have the ability to make life more meaningful or more miserable. You choose. Clint faced many difficult circumstances, and he kept on. He chose to maintain a positive perspective, and these were the things that were the driving forces behind how impactful his life was. Even when going into battle cancer, Clint didn't give up. He wasn't done. And he and Rainey faced the fight with strength and with hope and with positivity. Now, to illustrate Clint's perspective, allow me to share with you a signature response to a specific question that Clint had. When I first began speaking, I asked you this question. Do you remember what it was? What was it? I asked if you wanted to make a difference, that's true. But before I asked you that, I asked you how you were doing. When asked how he was doing, Clint's response was always to say, "I'm living the American dream." Even when things were difficult, even when he faced life-threatening experiences in the military and later struggled with PTSD, you could ask Clint, "How are you?" And he would respond, "Living the American dream." even when he and Rainey lost multiple pregnancies and Victoria in the first few years of marriage. You could ask, "How are you?" And he would respond, "Say it with me, I'm living the American dream." When being diagnosed with brain cancer at the age of 26 and told he had 6 months to live, you could ask, "Clint, how are you?" And he would respond, "Say it, I'm living the American dream." When winning the battle with cancer and living in remission, when being blessed with a healthy baby girl, Felicity, at the age of 28, Clint, you could ask him, "How are you?" And he would respond, "I'm living the American dream." When, after 3 years of remission, Clint was diagnosed with brain cancer again, when he realized it was time to say goodbye to Rainey and 1-year-old Felicity. Until the end, until passing away in Rainey's arms on September 8th, 2014, you could ask him, "Clint, how are you?" And his response remained the same. "How are you, Clint?" "I'm living the American dream." No matter what, Clint chose to see life in a positive light. With everything he faced, he could have easily become discouraged and frustrated, could have made life more miserable for himself and everyone around him. But he didn't. He understood something: the power of a positive perspective. Clint actively chose to maintain positivity, which helped him make life more encouraging and meaningful for himself and everyone around him. Until the end, Clint's perspective was one that looked obstacles in the eye and said, "You can't stop me from taking my wife on the honeymoon we never had. You can't stop me from enjoying a day at the zoo with my daughter. You can't stop me from positively impacting everyone I meet. You can't stop me from finding happiness, living my dreams where I'm at, and making an impact." Until the end, Clint's perspective was always positive. He kept a positive spin on things when he faced blessings and when he faced struggles. Now, to drive this home, allow me to share with you an example. Clint, before passing away, shared his thoughts that, quote, "Either God heals me and I'm fine, or I get to go to heaven early. Either way, I win." End quote. That was Clint's perspective. Either way, he would be a winner. Now, Clint knew that positivity couldn't take his problems away or necessarily fix them. But he also knew that neither could complaining and self-pity. So he actively chose to maintain a positive perspective, because with it, he knew he could face his problems with strength, maintain the motivation to persevere, and make life more meaningful for himself, for his family, and for everyone he met. With it, he lived his American dream. And not only did he live his American dream, but with a positive perspective, he could live out the second key phrase that was central to his life and which you would hear him say if you met him, which was, quote, "Don't be a jerk," end quote. No matter what, Clint did this. He always had a smile on his face and time to help anyone with anything. If you want to make an impact, don't be a jerk. Clint said this all the time, and it was his way of merrily expressing how important it is to positively impact everyone you meet. Now, with a positive perspective, Clint radiated encouragement and joy to everyone around him. It helped everyone around him maintain their own strength and positivity, especially Rainey, as she lost Clint and had to restructure her life with little Felicity. Even today, This is how Clint is remembered. For his positivity, for keeping on. His legacy lives on, and he still has a positive impact on everyone around him. On his friends, on Rainey, and on little Felicity as she grows up hearing about Daddy. Now earlier, I asked you if you wanted to make a positive impact. Everyone in the room said yes. So let me ask you as I conclude, where is your focus? Where is your perspective? Ask yourself those two things every day. Where is my perspective? Where is my focus? Now, remember to focus positively. You can't control the circumstances you're in all the time, but you can control how you think about them and react to them, and how that affects you and everyone around you. This is what Clint did. Think about Clint's story and remember two things. Keep on and focus positively. Keep on and focus positively. Don't let life's circumstances prevent you from finding happiness, making an impact, and living your dreams. Remember, every day, keep on and embrace the power of a positive perspective. Don't be a jerk and live your American dream. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Lisa. That was awesome. All right, let's continue our trivia, shall we? Question number 3, Academy Award for Best Picture in 1970. Was it A, Patton, as in General Patton, B, Love Story, or C, Airport? Academy Award for Best Picture in 1970, was it A, Patton, B, Love Story, or C, Airport? You have 10 seconds. Okay, finalize your answers. The Academy Award for Best Picture in 1970 was Patton. Question number 4, Academy Award for Best Picture in 1980. Was it A, The Elephant Man, B, Raging Bull, or C, Ordinary People? Academy Award for Best Picture in 1980. Was it A, The Elephant Man, B, Raging Bull, or C, Ordinary People? 10 seconds. Okay, finalize your answer. The correct answer was Ordinary People. Moving on to question 5, Academy Award for the Best Picture in 1990. Was it Ghost, Dances with Wolves, or Goodfellas? Academy Award for Best Picture of 1990, Ghost, Dances with Wolves, or Goodfellas? Got 10 seconds. This is tough for young people. They're negative 12 years old at this point. Okay, the correct answer is Best Picture for 1990 was Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner. Is anybody watching that Kevin Costner series Yellowstone? Oh my gosh, that's a good show. All right, we've got one more, and then we're going to move on to our next speaker. The Academy Award for Best Picture in 2000, was it A, Gladiator, B, Aaron Brockovich, or C, Traffic? Academy Award for Best Picture in 2000, was it A, Gladiator, B, Aaron Brockovich, or C, Traffic? Five seconds. Okay, please finalize your answer. And the correct answer was the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2000 went to Gladiator. Judges, did we buy you enough time? Okay. Okay, it's time for our second speaker. This young lady recently chased off a robber off her property while running barefoot in the night with nothing but a stick. Her career goal is to be a preschool teacher or a bouncer. And the title of her speech is Pirates, Vagabonds, and Filthy Tattoos. From Mossy Rock, Washington, please welcome to the stage, Maddie Shanks.
Secretary Wyman, Professor Williams, and Ms. McDowell, we appreciate y'all being here today. And to our friends and family at home, thank y'all for watching. Who here just wants to be happy? Just want to be happy. Everyone wants to be happy. People spend lifetimes chasing after what they think will bring them joy or satisfaction. And so often, we end up with our hands full while our hearts are still empty. Most of our journeys are filled with looking for happiness in the wrong places. Having a nice house in a perfect neighborhood, or driving your dream car on the way to your dream job. And I think that rather than relying on our possessions or surroundings for happiness, we ought to be looking for joy in the people who are with us along the way. We can lose jobs and crash cars, but if we take the time to connect with the people around us, even the darkest places in our journey won't be too hard to handle. About 8 years ago, my parents sold everything so that my family could go on a big journey and live on this 40-foot bus together, the 6 of us. Along the way, we saw many beautiful things, and we went on wonderful adventures to California, see sunsets and the beach, and to Mesa Verde to see the amazing cliffs and everything. But not everywhere we went was such a wonderful and magical place. There were times when we were unsure of what to do next. We found that in the great times and in the difficult times, it was really the people who made the difference in our journey and not the places. One of the most important parts of any journey is having a support system to back you up in case anything goes wrong. My family found our support through this forum we called the bus boards for people who call themselves bus nuts or crazy about buses. On this forum, you could find engine repair conversations and funny stories about traveling, RV park recommendations, and shout-outs like, hey, we're in this place. Is there anybody nearby who wants to meet up with us? This was a community where if we ever needed something, there were people who knew how to help, but they were also willing to give that help. On one of our trips through Montana, my family was driving through on this little town on our way here to Washington when we stopped at a mechanic's garage to get an oil change and to get a strange sound in the bus engine checked out. While the bus was in the garage, we stayed in an Airbnb for a couple of nights and waited to hear back. But when we did hear back, the news wasn't very good. The bus suddenly wouldn't start up because a mechanic had forgotten to close a valve on a fuel priming pump, and air was getting into the engine where air is not supposed to go. And long story short, the bill to get the bus back up and running was a whopping $28,000. There's the receipt with the breakdown. Cue the big family meeting down at the Taco Bell down the street. Did we want to continue with bus life and pour the rest of my parents' life savings into bus repairs? Or did we want to settle down in that tiny Montana town? It's a tough decision to make. Continue on with our beautiful, amazing life we had forever, or stop altogether. After lots of prayer and discussion, my family came to a unanimous decision that we'd stay with the bus. Now, while all this was going on, my dad was still in touch with all of his friends on the bus boards, asking for advice and tips about repairs. And when he brought up the new situation with these crazy repairs, he got a bunch of replies saying not to pay a penny. They said, if you drive it in, you drive it out, and that anything that happened inside that mechanic's garage wasn't our fault, and so it was the mechanic's responsibility. One of his friends even said, if you can make it all the way back over here to Washington, to Spokane, I'll take a look at the engine for you and tell you what's wrong. After a while, the bus got started back up because the mechanic decided to fix it for us, and we were on our way to Spokane to get our engine checked out. After a couple hours, my dad and this man found out the problem with the engine. What my parents had almost paid $28,000 to fix was easily remedied by a $300 muffler. Every penny of that $28,000 would have been wasted. Without this amazing bus community, we wouldn't have had the backup on if you drive it in, you drive it out philosophy, nor would we have found out that the problem was easily fixed by a $300 muffler. Without the bus community, we wouldn't have gotten very far on our journey. You have to be willing to reach out and make connections, or you won't go very far. We have a sign above the door in our bus that says, if you want to go fast, you can go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. It's true, because if you don't take time to reach out and make connections with people, you won't go very far in your journey. Sometimes those connections even keep you on your journey. Now, there's this thing called boondocking, same as dry camping. When you park your rig somewhere without any water hookups, electric, sewage hookups. This can be done anywhere from a Walmart parking lot to this pullout on the side of the highway, and we did this a lot on our journey. One time we were traveling through Arizona, and we decided we were going to park in the middle of this empty lot next to a church, because word on the bus boards had it that the Walmart in that town didn't usually condone overnight parking. So our plan was wake up, go to church, and be on our way. A very curious Sunday school teacher who was interested in our traveling lifestyle and in the bus changed that. We took her to meet our parents and look at the bus and take a tour, and all that led to her and her friends having lunch in our bus with us. And since we were all having so much fun and no one was in a hurry to go anywhere, our new friend said, why don't you just park your bus at my house for a night? I have a big driveway. And amazingly enough, our 40-foot bus did fit in her driveway. So one night turned into two, and we were there having a wonderful time together. My parents and our new friend and her roommate all stayed up past midnight talking and getting into the deep stuff about life and crying and praying and laughing together. When you're on the road, you don't have time to slowly build a friendship up. You're always on the move and you're always going somewhere new. You have to let go of fear of rejection and make that connection. Let go of the rejection and make the connection. Extending hospitality to a stranger resulted in reciprocity of the same and a delightful detour. So speaking of strangers, we've met some doozies along the way, usually in the form of neighbors in RV parks or campgrounds. Sometimes you have the quiet ones who you never really see, and sometimes you have the loud party people who are out for the weekend. The ones that will forever stand out in my memory are the lady with electric blue hair and a bikini to match, a vagabond pirate, a firefighter with perfect teeth, and his partner who had a filthy tattoo. Do you want to know what it was? The filthy tattoo? Of course. It was literally the word filthy in large Gothic font right across his waist. Filthy. With quiet neighbors, you leave them be. With loud neighbors, you hope that they read about the quiet hours in the park pamphlet. But what do you do when you have these people as your neighbors? when they've used part of your trash site or of your campsite as a trash dump, when all that surrounds you is Florida swamp and sketchy campground scenery. Well, my family was in this situation, and my mom decided to invite these characters over for dinner. When that went surprisingly well, and we'd made some amazing friendships, we decided to have them to our campsite every week for Poetry Tea Time Tuesday. Not what you'd expect, right? We took these people for long walks, and my parents took each one out to coffee to hear their stories. We made some amazing friendships. And remember the vagabond pirate guy? We made an especially deep connection with him, and to this day, we call him our brother. Extending hospitality like that and taking the risky decision to make a connection with those people resulted in many wonderful things. Even when we're outside of our comfort zone, we can still find joy if we take the step to make a connection with people. Instead of focusing on the sketchy campground and the loud fights in the night being broken up by police and the KKK member down the street causing some bit of trouble or another, we chose to look for the best in our circumstances. Had we focused on even the trash in our campsite, we would have left like any sane family, but we didn't. We focused on the good in the people who were with us in that bad place. Now, some of you might say, I'm introverted. I don't really like big groups of people or talking to strangers. It's uncomfortable. Well, 2/3 of my family are introverted, myself included. But what I found is that you can have quiet time anytime, but people aren't always going to be there. You have to let go of that fear of rejection and the fear that you might waste your time, because there's a risk of that. But if you made a connection or if you had an experience, then was your time really wasted? If you learned a lesson, was your time wasted? I don't think so. I think it's worth it to take the step. And to those of you who might say, I don't have space for hospitality. When you're making memories and friendships, there's always room for more. Don't let material factors hold you back. So all throughout our journey, whether it was the bus breaking down in Montana, spending the night in the driveway of our new friend in Arizona, or even our crazy neighbors in the RV park, we were able to find joy in the people there with us. It wasn't our circumstances or the place we were in that determined our happiness. It was the people who impacted our journey. Now, y'all might say, Maddie, times are different now. That was like 4 years ago. You don't know what you're talking about. Just 2 days ago, my mom and me and my boyfriend were in Walmart. We were just looking for a coffee filter. And what started out as a simple conversation about a French press coffee pot with a couple of strangers turned into an 1.5-hour long conversation with them. And they're our new friends now. It was wonderful. Things like this do happen. It's connections. They can happen anytime. So I want to challenge all of you to step outside of your comfort zone. Take that step. Make that connection. Find the joy in the people who are with you and not in your circumstances. I want to challenge you to go and make a connection even when it's uncomfortable and see the difference it makes in your journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Lisa, for getting us off to a good start. We're going to take an intermission, but before we do, I've got just a few more questions. Question number 7 in our trivia competition. They're starting to get interesting now. What was the federal minimum wage in 1970? You won't believe this one. Was it $3.50? Was it $1.60? Or was it $4.25? the minimum wage in 1970? Was it A, $3.50, B, $1.60, or C, $4.25? Okay, finalize your answer, please. The federal minimum wage in 1970 was a whopping $1.60. Can you believe that? Question number 8. The top-selling car in America in 1980. Was it A, a Chevrolet Chevette, B, a Chrysler minivan, or C, an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme? A, Chevrolet Chevette, B, Chrysler minivan, C, Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Top-selling car of 1980. Got 10 seconds. Okay, finalize your answer, please. The correct answer, top-selling car of 1980, was Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Number 9, best-selling novel of the 1970s. Was it A, Bloodline, B, A Stranger in the Mirror, or C, 1876? Best-selling novel of the 1970s. Was it A, Bloodline, B, A Stranger in the Mirror, or C, 1876? Please finalize your answer. And the correct answer is the best-selling novel of the 1970s was 1876. Question number 10, the average price of a gallon of regular gas in 1970, was it A, $1.15, B, 76 cents, or C, 35 cents? Again, that was average price of a gallon of regular gas in 1970. Was it $1.15 a gallon, 76 cents a gallon, or 35 cents a gallon? Okay, finalize your answer, please. This should be question number 10, right? Okay. The correct answer is a gallon of gas, regular gas that is, in 1970 was 35 cents a gallon. I remember a couple of years later trying to fill up my mini bike, and I couldn't afford it because it was 45 cents a gallon. I thought that was exorbitant. Okay, we're going to have a quick intermission now. There's food and drink back there for y'all. And we'll call you back in when we're getting close. Be about 10 minutes for you folks at home. Maybe go grab a cold refreshment, and we'll see you in 10.
Runners, take your marks. One big step over the starting blocks, and he begins to crouch into the starting position. One foot following the other as they find their foundation in the blocks. His hands reach for the line to steady himself, awaiting the pop of the official's gun. And this time, his heart starts to be heavy in his chest. Boom, 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 boom. And his breath begins to quicken. Get set! In this moment, he finds it in himself to take one last deep breath. The official's gun is now pointed towards the sky, and the stadium goes silent. 3, 2, 1. Today, I'm not here to talk to you about the race itself, but rather the racer and the aspects that influence progress in any race. You're probably asking yourself, who is the unnamed athlete in the story? Well, let me just tell you, it isn't Usain Bolt or even Jesse Owens. In fact, the athlete I will be talking about today is much more extraordinary than any you have heard of before. In my life, I've never met anyone quite like him. His optimistic spirit and can-do attitude is an inspiration to all those whose paths cross his. He gives his all in every drill. In each race, he strives to prove his skill. And when it comes to encouragement, instead of saying, I hope, he says, I will. His name is Emmett Douglas, a student at one of the local high schools, a cross-country runner, a track and field athlete, and a young man who is and has always been completely blind. As a fellow track athlete, I've had the pleasure to experience firsthand the inspiration that this young man procures. And alongside him, I've come to learn that there are 3 factors that influence progress throughout each race. While I continue to tell the story of Emmett, I'll be touching on each of these 3 factors: the athlete, the obstacles, and the mentality. The first is the athlete, obviously. But when I reference the athlete, I'm not talking about the athlete as a whole, but rather the unchangeable characteristics that each person has, whether it be their height, their build, their strength. These things we can't change, the things that we're born with. In Emmett's case, he was born with 2 working arms, 2 working legs, 10 fingers and 10 toes, just as any other person. But the one thing that most people focus on with him is his lack of sight. While these things that are unchangeable do impact the race, it is up to us to determine how much we allow it to impact. In Emmett's case, he has never seen his lack of eyesight as a hindrance. Obviously, he can't see where he's going, but he's never used that as a defining factor of himself. If you asked himself to describe him, he wouldn't say, I'm blind. Instead, he'd say, I'm just a normal kid. I'm an athlete, I'm a student, I'm a friend, I'm a son. But never would you hear it come out of his mouth, I'm blind. And this choice of what you allow people to see of yourself is what really makes the difference. He doesn't allow his blindness to keep him from doing what he wants to do, from what he loves. And he'll never let it get in the way of his dreams and goals. I ask you this question: if you were in his shoes, would you have the will to stride forward in the face of his adversity? The next of the 3 factors is the obstacles. An obstacle is anything that can get in the way or hinder progress throughout the race. An obstacle can be many different things, whether it be a physical barrier,
a mental block, or any other seen blockade that someone may experience in their lifetime. Now, Emmett was faced with one of the most challenging barriers a person could ever imagine, living life without sight. Knowing full well the challenges that Emmett might experience throughout his lifetime, his parents made the courageous decision to not let him be defined by his blindness, by his lack of sight. Instead, they wanted him to live a normal life, not defined nor restrained by his impairment. Now, when we think of obstacles, a lot of the things we think about are obstacle courses, things that you can physically see. But obstacles are so much more than that. To help show you what I mean, I have a few things to show you. These can be considered obstacles, correct? In track, we have some drills that we do for agility and footwork. One of the normal ones is just a normal side step where each foot goes in between each cone. Now, Secretary Wyman, do you think that you could do that if I asked you to? Yeah. Professor Williams? Yeah. Ms. McDowell? Exactly. Now, Emmett did these every practice he was asked for. Do you think his lack of sight would be considered an obstacle in this sense? Exactly. But he would never let it be an obstacle. He would never let it get in the way of him completing a task that was put before him. I never once saw him shy away from a challenge. In fact, he always went at it head first, with the best attitude. So again, when I talk about these factors, it's not necessarily the factor itself, but how we view it and how we push forward through that factor that truly impacts the race. So while these may be obstacles to us, and while Emmett's lack of sight may be an obstacle to him, we must choose to push forward through those obstacles so that we can achieve the goals that we have for ourselves. Now I ask you again, if you were in Emmett's place and you were asked to do something like this, would you stride forward? The last of the three factors that I'll be talking about today is the mentality. And this, in my opinion, is the most important. The other things do affect your progress. Those things can be overcome by a simple mentality change. Emmett has lived his life just as any other, reading, writing, playing the occasional video game, and competing in athletics against his peers. And while his lack of eyesight is a physical hindrance, his determination overthrows any obstacle that he faces. And that's truly what makes him such an inspiration. Now, we can learn a lot from Emmett as a person, as an athlete, from his mentality. One meet, when I was in track with him, I remember this so vividly because it stuck with me from what he was putting forward, his attitude towards the race he had at hand. He's a long distance runner and ran the 1 mile and 2 mile runs. And I remember he was talking to his guide runner and the sprinting coach and saying how badly he wanted to get a new personal record that meet. And he was like, I'm going to PR today. I want to PR today, and I'm going to. There was never a doubt in his mind that he was able to do it. And that mentality made all the difference. He went out that day on the track, the starting gun popped, he ran his heart out, and when he crossed that finish line, his time was 2 minutes faster than any race he had run before. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with how track works, but 2 minutes is a long time on the track, whether it's a 2 mile race or a 1 mile race. So the fact that he made that choice before he stepped on the track and he went out there and performed, gave his everything because he knew what he was capable of doing, that's what made all the difference. And that stuck with me up until now, as an athlete and as a person. And I tell myself, if I believe that I can do something, then I should be able to. That doesn't mean that just because I think it, it's going to happen. That also means that you have to back it up with the time, the effort, and the grit. The mental strength is what pushes you towards success. Now, Emmett, like I said, is an athlete, but not only that. And he will always be an inspiration for what he's been able to do thus far. And while we all may not be athletes in a literal sense, like Emmett, we can all learn something from these three factors. We can see life like a race, and we are all racers. And it's up to us to decide. Will we allow the invariable characteristics that we are given at birth define us? Will we let obstacles hinder our progress? And will we let ourselves quit when the going gets tough due to a lack of mental toughness? Or will we continue to stride forward in the face of adversity, just as Emmett has done and continues to do every single day of his life? The official's gun is now pointed towards the sky, and the stadium is silent. 3, 2, 1. Pop! Our race has begun. So now I ask you, Ms. McDowell, Professor Williams, and Secretary Wyman, will you stride forward? Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're back on. There we go. Let's continue with our trivia. We're on question number 11 now. Who had the #1 Billboard hit, pop hit that is, of 1975? Was it Philadelphia Freedom by Elton John, Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell, Love Will Keep Us Together from Captain and Tennille, again, Philadelphia Freedom by Elton John, Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell, Love Will Keep Us Together by Captain and Tennille, #1 pop hit of 1975. Please finalize your answer. You got 5 seconds. And the #1 pop hit of 1975 was Love Will Keep Us Together by Captain and Tennille. Question number 12. Who had the #1 Billboard pop hit of 1985? Was it A, Like a Virgin by Madonna, B, Careless Whisper by George Michael, or C, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go by Wham? The #1 Billboard pop hit of 1985, was it Like a Virgin by Madonna, Careless Whisper by George Michael, or Wake Me Up Before You Go Go by Wham? And again, I designed these for your parents and loved ones and grandparents even, so I know this is tough for you students. Question number 13, who had the #1 Billboard pop hit of 1995? Was it A, Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio, B, Kiss from a Rose by Seal, or C, Waterfalls by TLC? The #1 Billboard pop hit of 1995, was it Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio, Kiss from a Rose by Seal, or Waterfalls by TLC? Five seconds to finalize your answer. And the correct answer is A, Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio. And one more before we do our next speaker. Question number 14, who had the #1 Billboard pop hit of 2005? Was it Hollaback Girl by Gwen Stefani, Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson, or We Belong Together by Mariah Carey? Again, #1 pop hit of 2005, was it A, Hollaback Girl by Gwen Stefani, B, Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson, or C, We Belong Together by Mariah Carey? Okay, finalize your answers. And the correct answer is We Belong Together by Mariah Carey. Judges, did we buy you enough time? Okay. It's time for our fourth speaker. At only 16 years of age, he's our youngest competitor tonight and plans on following his brother's footsteps as a real estate agent. He's very active in his church and he likes to play the drums in his spare time. His speech is titled, There Is Still Hope. Please help me in welcoming to the stage from Chehalis, Washington, Matthew Critcher.
I want to give great appreciation to the three judges who came out here today, Secretary Wyman, Professor William, and Miss McDowell. Thank you all for being here today. Hey, Mom, do we have any toilet paper left? I was looking to the bathroom trying to find some, and I think I used the last bit. We got to go to Walmart to get some? You remember that last time we went there? I was looking through the aisles, and they were all empty. To my shock, they were all completely empty. Hi, my name is Matthew Critcher, and I'm going to be talking about hope. Now, you might be wondering today, toilet paper, hope, how do they flush together? Well, any of you guys that like to go grocery shopping? Wait, not like, because grocery shopping is pretty boring. But anyone who's gone grocery shopping during this coronavirus time might remember when everyone went in panic mode and bought like triple the amount that they usually buy at the grocery store. Well, I wasn't aware of this, and I went to the grocery store with my mom, and I remember walking in the aisle, and I was so accustomed to be able to find the toilet paper, the waters, whatever, and I walk in there, and there was like empty shelves. I couldn't find what I was looking for. It's like, what? This crazy. Now, this is just a simple example of something that we can place hope in and become accustomed to and think it's always going to be there for us. But it will let us down. Why? Because it's a finite thing. And there's so many things in our lives, such as money, our health, even friends and family, that will not always be there for us. But you might be wondering today, then, what do we place our hope in? I'll tell you about that here in a little. But I would like to share a story with you that originates around 2,000 years ago, year around AD 30. And this is in the land of the Middle East. And it was just normal time, normal decade. No one thought there'd be anything different that would happen. But little did they know that there was something that was going to change the universe. There was a man there, a carpenter's son, by the name of Jesus. And he, by the name of Jesus, and he was actually following his father's footsteps, and he was doing carpentry for a long while of his life, till he was around 30 years of age. But he wasn't there just to do carpentry. He had something greater in mind. He was no ordinary man. He was God and humanity. You might be thinking, God and humanity, that's crazy. Yes, he was God and humanity. And what his mission was to bring salvation to the whole world. That when we're gone from this earth, that we got a promise that we're going to make it to heaven one day. But when he got started on his work, he needed to have some people that would help him and that would continue his work when he was gone. So we picked several individuals, but the two I'd like to take note of today is Peter and Judas Iscariot. You guys may or may not be familiar with these two individuals. But both of them had different backgrounds, different occupations. But they went similar in the fact that they sold everything out to follow Jesus. And these individuals, they had it pretty easy. They thought, things are going good. And not only good, though, they saw some things that were absolutely breathtaking. Some things that if we saw today, that the natural eye, if they saw, would absolutely leave you in awe. For example, they saw Jesus heal the sick. They saw Jesus raise the dead. They saw Jesus cast devils out. So yeah, it was easy for them to be like, man, things are good. I'm so happy to be following him. And it was so easy for them to keep their hope in him. But little did they know that right around the corner, there was some stuff that was going to shake their lives up and really see if they were going to stick it to the end and were going to hold on hope. Now, it was during a time called the Last Supper. Many of you might be familiar with that. And that was really Jesus' Last Supper with his disciples. And in that time, they were all talking and discussing and eating food, and Jesus was teaching them some very important lessons. But then Jesus changed his subject, and he looks at all his disciples, and he says, one of you is going to betray me. Perplexed and confused, they looked at one another, and then back at Jesus. And one after another, they said, is it I? Am I going to betray you, Jesus? But Judas in his heart had somehow allowed some things to get in between him and Jesus. And Judas knew that he was the one that Jesus was talking about. But he didn't want to let anyone else know. But Peter answered and said, Master, is it I? I'll never betray you, Jesus. I'll even die for you. And Jesus looked at Peter and he said, you will deny me 3 times before you hear the rooster crow twice. And this was like an arrow that shot in his heart. And he was so in denial. He's like, I won't deny you, Jesus. But some time after that, Jesus had taken his disciples to his favorite place to pray. And that was the Garden of Gethsemane. And while they were praying, Judas had snuck out and got together with the men that were going to take Jesus, that he had betrayed Jesus for. And so he brought the men over there and had them hiding. And he approached Jesus as if a friend, and he came and gave him a kiss. But that kiss was a kiss of betrayal. And when he gave him that kiss, the men surrounded Jesus and took him captive to go crucify him at Calvary. And Peter watched this. Peter was astonished. He thought in his heart, Judas, the man, I've known this man since we've been working with Jesus. He's seen the same thing as I have. Why would he lose hope? Why would he give up? Why would he betray and deny our master? And so Peter followed them behind, and he kept following them until they were crucifying Jesus. And Peter found a place to sit down, and he was just feeling all hopeless and didn't know what was going to happen. Well, to make things worse, some people came to him, and they looked at Peter and they said, hey, are you the one who was with Jesus, right? And he looked at them. No, I don't know the man. And he responded like this because he knew that if he would have responded yes, he could have been on a cross just like Jesus. And so another person comes and says, hey, you knew that man. I saw you. You're a disciple of his. And he looked at them. You got me mistaken with someone else. And for the 3rd time, someone else comes and says the same question. And he responds angry, no, it's not me. And right when he said that, he heard the rooster crow the second time. And in that moment, he realized, I have failed. I have hit rock bottom. I have done exactly what Judas has done. And there seems like there is no hope for me. Now moving over to Judas. Judas realized when Jesus was being crucified, like Peter, that what he had done was so wrong. He wasn't crucifying just a man, but he was crucifying the one he loved with all his heart. And Judas, what did he do? He lost hope. He gave it up completely. He said, there is no hope. And he ran and he committed suicide and hung himself. Now Peter feeling the same way. Peter could have done the same thing. Peter had denied and betrayed Jesus just like Judas did. He had the complete opportunity to go in his life. But what did he do? Somewhere in his heart, he got the determination that there is still hope. And what's so significant about this is because he held on, Jesus used him in incredible ways. That when Jesus died and he rose again, he came to Peter specifically and forgave Peter of everything that he did wrong. But not only that, but he gave Peter the steps of salvation for Peter to give to the whole world. And those steps today, you can actually find in the Bible in the book of Acts, chapter 2, and verse 38. And this is right after Peter was preaching, and the people were feeling convicted, and they were sorry for what they had done. And they asked Peter, they said, what do we do to be saved? Or what is it that we do to grab a hold of that hope? And verse 38 says, then Peter said unto them, repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the remission of sins. And what's so awesome about this is the very next scripture verse, Peter responds with this. He says, and this promise is unto you and to your children and to all those that are far off, even as many as the Lord our God shall call. Afar off, that means even today. That promise is relevant for us today. So today, you may be feeling like life just isn't worth anything. You may be feeling like you're at the end of your rope, like you've hit rock bottom. But I'm here to tell you today that there is still hope. Keep hanging on. Grab a hold of Jesus. And there is still hope. And his name is Jesus. And with that, I thank you.
I do not envy these judges, I can tell you that. Nice job, Matthew. All right, we're going to continue with our trivia. We're almost done. We're on question number 15 of 20 now. According to the Nielsen ratings, what was the top-rated TV show of the 1970-71 season? Was it The Flip Wilson Show, Here's Lucy, or Marcus Welby, MD? The top-rated TV show of the 1970-71 season, was it A, Flip Wilson, B, Here's Lucy, C, Marcus Welby? Finalize your answers, guys, in 5 seconds. You know it's a total crapshoot anyway, don't you? You have no idea. Okay, the correct answer is Marcus Welby, MD. Question number 16. According to the Nielsen ratings, what was the top-rated TV show of the 1980-81 season? Was it A, MASH, B, Dallas, C, The Love Boat? Again, top-rated show, TV show that is, of the 1980-81 season. Was it A, MASH, B, Dallas, or C, The Love Boat? Finalize your answers, please. The correct answer is B, Dallas. two more. According to the Nielsen ratings, what was the top-rated show of the 1990-91 season? Was it A, Cheers, B, The Golden Girls, or C, Full House? Top-rated show of 1990-91. Was it A, Cheers, B, The Golden Girls, or C, Full House? Please finalize your answer. And the correct answer is Cheers. All right, last question, and then we go on to our final speech. According to the Nielsen ratings, what was the top-rated TV show of the 2000-2001 season? Was it A, ER, B, Survivor, or C, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Top-rated show of the 2000-2001 season. Was it A, ER, B, Survivor, or C, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Please finalize your answers, and the correct answer is Survivor. Judges, are you ready for our final speaker? Okay. Our fifth speaker is a World War II buff and a U.S. Army veteran with his eye on a career in the aerospace industry. Originally from Oakdale, California, but now making his home in Washington State, his speech is titled, A Letter to My Mother. Please help me in welcoming to the stage C.J. Backman.
Secretary Weinman, Professor Williams, and Ms. McDowell, honored speakers, and the viewers tuning in at home. Who is the first person you call when you're at your wit's end? Who is the first person you call when you're on top of that mountain? Who is the first person when you finally reach your goal? My name is C.J. Backman, and I'm from Oakdale, California. I'm 23 years old. Let's restart this. Who is the first person you call when you're on top of that mountain? The one person you call when you finally reached your goal. This could be a friend, a family member, or even a coach. But that person better be the same person you call when you're at your wit's end and the world is crumbling around you. For me, that person is my mother. For those of you who don't know me, my name is C.J. Backman. I'm 23 years old, and I'm from Oakdale, California. As a kid, I always had a talent for keeping my mom on her toes. From climbing trees to breaking cabinets, I always had a reason to keep an eye on me. As a kid, my favorite thing to do was ride my bike. And in a span of 8 months, I cracked my head open 3 times, causing a lot of headaches and multiple visits to the ER. There was a running joke with my grandparents and my mom saying they probably should have gave her a punch card saying the 10th visit's free. But that was us. So I wasn't the easiest kid to be raising either by a single parent. My father was never really in the picture. So I kind of found it hard to do things without a role model, but my mom never seemed to skip a beat and always seemed to pick up the slack in that department. From school or to sports, she was always the person in my corner cheering the loudest. And I'll never forget, me and my buddy, we were talking, and he heard her screaming something, and she was like, "Hey, baby, go, come on, keep going." And he looked at me, and he was like, "Dude, is that your mom?" And I was like, "Man, I've never seen that woman in my life." I'll never forget, the craziest thing about that situation is she cheered me on even if I lost. I'll never forget, our town just created our first Pee Wee football team. I was 8 years old, and all my friends were so excited to sign up. And we got our physicals done, we signed the waiver, and we were on our way.
and we dropped our first 5 games. And so I saw a couple of my friends quit the previous week, and I was really bummed, and I wasn't really having a fun time playing football. We just lost our 5 games straight. So I told my mom on the car ride home, I said I wanted to quit. And she looked at me, and she said, "You're not going to quit. That's not the answer to the solution, and it's not going to solve this problem. You just need to try harder." So who can tell me who can tell me how many more games we won because of that speech? How many more games, or how better our record improved because we just tried harder and we didn't quit? Anybody? All of them? Absolutely zero. We didn't win a single game, and our record didn't improve, and there wasn't a participation trophy waiting at the end of that season. We just lost. But I couldn't imagine quitting that day because I wouldn't have grown up with the people my friends I had. I wouldn't have learned how to be tough, and I definitely wouldn't have played football for another 10 years. My mom is undoubtedly the toughest person I know. She had me at 23 years old, and she worked every day to be a principal that I can remember. Our morning routine would be she would wake me up, cook me breakfast, and kiss me on the forehead before she left for work. And after that, she'd come home and tuck me in. After that was done, she would work long into the night preparing for the next day. We moved a lot growing up as a kid until she finally got her first job as a vice principal at Ceres High School. And she was so dedicated to that job and to her students, and even more so with school spirit. I remember she came home for her first homecoming. She dyed her hair red for her students. And I was so excited I wanted to go, and back in 2008, Ceres wasn't the safest place to be running around as a kid, unsupervised on a Friday night, so I wasn't allowed to go to those games. And she ended up being jumped that night by 2 female students who wanted to fight over a boy to take to the homecoming dance. She ended up with bruised ribs, a broken finger, and a black eye, and she would be at work that following Monday. I wanted to tell you that story to show you what kind of discipline my mom tried to instill in me and my little brother growing up. Even though through all those examples she tried to set, I still managed to screw things up. Most of that was brought on by school, and more due to the fact that I didn't care to be there. She would tell me speech after speech about just trying harder and sitting there and learning, and I was stuck in my same spoiled mindset, thinking the world revolved around me, and I couldn't even scrape by in math to get a C. Even though through all that, she still had my back. No matter what I did, I had her full support, even if that decision wasn't the best option for me at the time. And one of those choices was the military. So my great-grandfather was a World War II pilot, and he ended up going down near an aircraft carrier with a crash that went undetermined after the investigation, and he died on impact. And learning that at an early age just added fuel to my fire for wanting to be in the military and wanting to be a pilot. So against my mother's wishes, after graduating high school, I enlisted instead of going to college. And I enlisted as a forward observer. And for those of you who don't know what a forward observer is, it's basically a scout that's understanding what's going on in the battlefield as a game plan as a whole, and making sure ordnance are dropped on time or targets are hit when we need to hit them. So I chose this job because it definitely added a competitive aspect when I went to the flight board for that pilot job. And I did everything the recruiter said I was going to do. I talked to aircrafts, I did all that. So I looked good going to it. After that, it took me 2 years of my enlistment to gain enough confidence and rank to ask my NCOs or ask somebody if I could do something. And the day finally came where I could take my flight exam, and I was so nervous I almost threw up. I remember walking into the building and just shaking, and that little voice in my head got really loud and was like, hey, maybe you're not cut out for this. Maybe you shouldn't do this. Just go home. You can hang your head. You've had a good career already. But I wasn't going to let the fear of failure take this opportunity away from me. So I took the test, and I found out 10 minutes after that I passed. And I was ecstatic. I was jumping up and down in my head. I didn't want to show it to the test proctor, but I went up and I shook his hand anyway and said, thank you. After I left, I did one of those Tiger Woods moments, yeah, like outside of it. But I was really excited, and I called my mom, and she started crying because we knew at the bottom of my heart in the next year I was going to be a pilot, because what that test meant for me was huge. So the last thing I had to do was take a flight exam, flight physical. And I knew I had this in the bag. I was probably in the best shape of my life at that point. I had 20/20 vision, and I've taken physicals all my life, and nobody's ever found a thing. So I was hyped. I knew I was going to the flight school in Alabama after this. I knew I was going to be that guy. I was going to be the dude I was supposed to be. So I went in, and the flight physical went on without a hiccup. And so I was sitting in the waiting room waiting for this captain to come in and give me this green stamp saying, you're flight certified. And I just remember sitting there of all the times my mom brought me in and told me those speeches of not quitting and being tough. And this is it. This is my moment. 10 seconds from now, I'm going to be a pilot. So he finally walked in, and I jumped up, and I said, hey, thank you, sir, for taking the time to view my packet. And he said, hey, you need to sit down. And I knew as soon as he said that, something was up. And I started racing through my mind thinking, hey, is it my blood? Is it my heart? Like, I'm healthy. Am I going to die? Like, that's the only thing stopping me right now in my mind. So what seemed like an eternity, probably only 10 seconds, he told me, I have an eye disease. And I kind of just shut down and was shocked. The world stopped in that moment for me. And at the time, I probably wasn't mature enough to soak everything in, so I kind of just shut down. And the last thing I remember hearing was, hey, we're not going to take a chance on you because you could possibly go blind, so we're going to cut you on the spot. And I got a red stamp, and I was cut. And in that time, I was thinking, I just wasted 2 years of my life doing something that was not going to happen. I was crushed, and I was trying to hold myself together and not cry in front of everybody in this building. And I finally got to walk out to my car, and I kind of just broke down, and I was feeling sorry for myself. And I looked at my phone, and I saw a missed text from my mom. And she said, how'd it go? So I got on the phone, and I had to call her, and I had to tell her I failed. So I called her, and she knew immediately from the tone in my voice something went wrong. And I fell apart right after that and broke down even more. And I remember saying, oh, woe is me, woe is me. And she said, well, plan B. And I thought for a second, I was like, plan B? I was like, this wasn't in the script. This isn't supposed to happen to me. I'm supposed to be that guy. I don't want to do anything else. I'm supposed to be this. And she said, that's not the way the world works. And we're going to have to take it day by day till we find something new. And I remember thinking back right now to this moment of all the things I did during that service time, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. The people I met, the places I went, and the things I did, I would do it all over again to be right here. And if it wasn't for that phone call in that moment, I wouldn't be standing here today. My mother is the most inspirational person I know, and I am blessed to be raised by her and everyone else who helped me out along the way. For the next chapter of my life, whatever that holds, I know there will be times of uncertainty, and I know there will be times where I don't have all the answers, but I know I can think back to those speeches and pick up the phone and call that person to ask what to do in this situation or how is this going to play out in the future. I want to thank Jeff McQuarrie for putting me in this situation with these elite group of speakers. I want to thank Secretary Weinman, Professor Williams, and Ms. McDowell for being here in this uncertain time of our lives. I want to finish by saying everyone has that person in their life who they can call in a time of need. Don't hesitate to call that person. You don't have to face things alone, and there's always somebody in your corner cheering the loudest. Thanks, Mom. I totally fucking froze. Thanks.
That's not how life works. Classic. Smart mom. Okay, that's it for our top 5 speakers. Weren't they awesome? Now we can all do a collective sigh of relief. Let's do that together. You guys can do it with us at home on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, we're going to do our final 2 trivia questions. This should be questions number 19 and 20. These ones are not so time specific, so you young folks shouldn't have such a hard time with this. Excluding Hawaii and Alaska, the state of Washington has more glaciers than all the other 47 states combined. This is a true-false question. Excluding Hawaii and Alaska, the state of Washington has more glaciers than all the other 47 states combined. Is that true or is it false? Seems kind of hard to believe. All right, finalize your answers, guys. And here it comes. The correct answer is true. It's true. And the last question, what is the oldest city in the state of Washington? Is it A, Republic, B, Thorpe, or C, Steilacoom? The oldest city in the state of Washington, is it A, Republic, B, Thorpe, or C, Steilacoom? Five seconds. Please finalize your answers. And the correct answer is Steilacoom, 1851. Which seems odd to me. I would think it would be on the east side of the state, you know? I mean. All right, so we've completed 5 great speeches now in our trivia competition. But before we announce the winner, I'm going to give the students just a moment to add up your trivia scores, because I've got a gift card for you, and I'll call you up here, and whoever scored the highest. So we're just going to do a 1-minute break for those of you watching at home. We'll be back in 1 minute. First of all, Lisa, come on up, please. And CJ, come on up. They both got 10 out of 20, which is not too bad considering those questions were all basically designed for older folks. You guys stand on either side of me if you would. Okay. Question number 1, true or false? Centralia College is the oldest community college in the state of Washington. You have 3 seconds to think about it. Okay. Need an answer. On the count of 3, you both shout out your answer. Is it true or false? 1, 2, 3. False. You're both correct. It's the oldest continuously operated community college. Okay. Question number 2. I started teaching here in 2013. True or false? Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. It's false. I started here in 2011. Thank you guys both. CJ, stay with me. Let's hear it for CJ for winning our trivia competition. We need to buy the judges some more time. I want to thank a few people that volunteered their time to make tonight's competition a possibility. First of all, Centralia College President Dr. Moorbacher, Dr. Bob Moorbacher. Vice President of Instruction for Centralia College, Dr. Joyce Hammer. Assistant to the President, Janet Rayum. And her husband, Christian, who provided the hay for us behind me here. Chuck Wallace, who's our Safety and Security Manager. Casey Rice, who's our Director of Buildings and Grounds. Amy Fritsch, who came up with the name Statewide Inspirational Speech Championship. She was our Speech Club President back in 2017. Hi, Amy, if you're watching at home. Finally, we made this come to fruition. Tyler Maycomber, one of the bachelor's degree students who handled all the food and beverages for us. My boss, Christian Brune, Dean of Instruction, Arts and Sciences, who would not let this event die, and believe me, there was a lot of daggers in this thing. It died many times, and we're still here, so thank you, Christian. Chastity Pennington, Christian's assistant, who got stuck with all the nitty-gritty little details. Ali Balbuena, one of our former strong speech students, who gave a workshop today on body language for these students. Rick Perkins, who you can't see him, I don't think he's out of the frame, and he doesn't like to be on camera anyway, but he's, thanks to him, we have a live stream today. He's put a lot of time into this, and same with Seth Lomberg, Pat Chappelle, Mike Kristen, Sam Small, our IT director, and one of our contestants' dads who we just happened to be fortunate enough that when we found out we had to do a live stream, one of our contestants' dads is a professional audio and video conferencing guy. He does big conferences for Fortune 500s, and maybe it's divine intervention, I don't know, but thank you to Mr. Sean Shanks, who gave up about 3 full days of his week, this past week. And if I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. But on a personal note, too, I want to thank my wife, Julie, for putting up with me, putting so many hours on this, being home but not really being home. If any of you guys know Julie, please tell her that I acknowledged her, because I need the points at home right now. And now I'm going to ask Secretary Wyman to come up. Did I give you guys enough time? Okay. I'm going to ask Secretary Wyman to come up. And first she's going to announce the runner-up. And please come on up and accept your plaque. And then she'll announce the winner of tonight's competition. And again, stay up here with us. And then we're going to have everybody come up and we'll get a group photo with the judges, and then one without the judges, and then a picture of the runner-up and the winner of tonight's competition. And I got to tell you, I do not envy these guys. That must have been hard, coming up with a winner. Okay.
Okay, so I don't think anyone in this room really knows me, but I am a weeper. I get emotional, and I was so happy I had this because when you guys were up there, I was like, oh my gosh, they're making me cry. They're making me cry. And I wanted to be really strong to all of you. Amazing. I think in the last, I hate to say it, 40 years, because I've been at this stuff a long time, have given thousands of speeches. Thousands and thousands, and I've had the opportunity to speak to many, many groups, and I will tell you that my favorite groups and audiences to speak to are young people, particularly college students, and see, they didn't even know. They wouldn't have invited me if they'd known I would just get up here and cry, but what I can tell you is when I was sitting where you're sitting, I didn't have the poise and the confidence and the presence that each one of you had tonight. And you are so far ahead of the game. And when I was sitting where you were sitting, I couldn't have contemplated that I would be, you know, Secretary of State of Washington. It wasn't on my radar in any way, shape, or form. And keep running with what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. You were so inspirational this evening in every sense. The content of your speeches were amazing. Your presentations were phenomenal. And it takes guts to get up here. And I don't think that most people know that. What they know intuitively is that they would rather, what is it? People are more afraid of public speaking than death, and I know one of you mentioned that in your speech. Think about that. People would rather die than get up here and do what you just did. And so, you know, really revel in that because it's a gift. It is a gift most people don't have. And just keep honing that skill set and you will have no idea where it will lead you or take you, but it's going to take you big places. And it has been just such an honor to get to sit up here, and I know I speak on behalf of all three judges, that what you did tonight was amazing, and that you're the inaugural group is pretty phenomenal as well. So keep doing what you're doing, keep working hard, because you're going to do great things, and you give me a great deal of hope in our future. So thank you for that. Now the hard part, because we want all of you, you know, okay, oh yeah, what is that? Another one that one of you referenced, the participation trophy. This isn't about a participation trophy. The fact that you're all here as the top 5 in the state is pretty freaking amazing. Oh wait, that wasn't very professional, sorry. It's a good thing I didn't say the other thing, huh? But it's amazing, and we're proud of all 5 of you. And if we could give all 5 of you the first place trophy, we would, but of course then it wouldn't mean anything. So, ladies and gentlemen, the runner-up for the inaugural statewide Inspirational Speech Championship is Matthew Kreider. Okay, and I hope I said it right. Did I butcher your last name and totally blow it? Okay, what should it have been? Let me do it again. Critcher. Okay, wait, let me do it again. Pause. Matthew Critcher. Okay, there we go. Thank you for being so graceful. All right, and finally, ladies and gentlemen, your winner for the statewide International Speech Championship is Haley Ward. I'm doing everything wrong here. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, thank you.
All right, let's everybody come on up and we'll get a photo.
You're welcome. Yep.
Yeah, we'll move this out of the way. Yeah, you can, well, I'm going to take my view now. Yeah, so you can come on up, Lou. Folks, this concludes our show tonight. Am I still in the frame? I'm probably not. This concludes our show tonight. Thank you so much, and God bless. And we're going to take some pictures now, and I will share those pictures with you later. Thank you for watching.